question is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start prioritizing wellness in their life, but maybe doesn't know where to start?
Mm.
I could go first. I would say when it comes to prioritizing wellness, it definitely starts with self care, aka yourself. And I would say the first step is just like reflecting on all of your habits and seeing what's serving you, what's not serving you, like what's helping you to be a better person, what's making you happy, what's making you feel peaceful and a joy. And what are those small things that's kind of like annoying you or that's kind of like, you don't really want to do it. And not going after the major thing that you know for a fact is like holding you back, because that can be daunting, that can be hard. So maybe going with something smaller, like if you recognize that you eat a lot of chips, maybe starting with that rather than cutting off a whole friend group or something. um so yeah, I just say starting with just reflecting on your habits and figuring out what is serving you and what's not serving you at the end of the day, because you know what it is. We just try to ignore it. And when we're constantly on the go, when we're constantly doing stuff and we don't take a step back to reflect and see what those things are, we tend to forget it. You know what I'm saying? Like today we'll be like, dang, I didn't like how that person made me feel. But if you don't go back and reflect on that, you're gonna forget. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna go home, you got homework, you're gonna watch TV, and then you're gonna see them the next day and like forget that happened. So definitely just taking a step back, reflecting, and yeah, prioritizing that.
Go ahead, babe.
Oh, okay.
Um, for me, when it comes to prioritizing things, I tend to be very aloof unless something is written out in front of me. So I'm a very list oriented person. So at the beginning of the year, my goal for the year was to really figure out what I wanted for my life and break down those things in certain ways. So socially, what did I want to do for myself and how did I want to incorporate that in my relationship with others? Physically, my goal was to like run 3 miles consecutively. So to cut that down every day, I'm going to run a little bit longer. Or for physical health, if I want to drink 80 ounces of water, I start with drinking 40 ounces. And then in a month, I'll drink 50 ounces. So really just breaking down the things you want to do as big goals into small little habits and work your way up to it. Because if you start a big daunting goal, you tend to stop instead of make progressive progress. So that's what I would say. I would say break down the goals that you have and prioritize those goals in a way that makes sense to you and how you operate on a daily basis.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to co-sign what y'all said. Kind of what they were saying is like the sandwich theory. Like with your habits, start putting in little things in between the things that you already do. So you brush your teeth, and then you put on your clothes or whatever for the day. But in between that, have a time for like talking to yourself, or thinking about your day or thinking about yesterday. I would say also every day do one thing that you want to do and one thing that you need to do and prioritize those things. Like I feel like at this time now, and it's like as we just get older, we have so many tasks that we have to do and we get overwhelmed by those things. And then you start talking like, oh my God, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, and all things are not doing. So just slow down and give yourself time, because one thing that we are granted is time by the grace. So take your time with those things. One thing you need to do, one thing you want to do, then also put in reflection in your day. One thing I'm a big advocate of is journaling. Journaling literally saved my life. Like I'm somebody who thinks and thinks and thinks and thinks and overthinks, and I just create a whole tunnel, and it may even be a negative tunnel, and I'll just keep going down that, and there's no way for me to get out. But when you release it and you actually put it out there, if you speak it, you have a video diary, or if you have an actual written diary, literally getting out will help you way more than you think. You'll think, oh, it's the same thing, like I'm thinking it's the same thing on paper. I promise you it's not. Like getting it out is so much better than keeping it in. And if you can't talk to somebody, definitely talk to yourself. One thing I do, I literally talk out loud to myself. Like I pop in my earphone, I'll be walking on campus, I walk anywhere, and I'm act like I'm listening to music, I'm act like I'm on the phone, I'm talking to myself. And that's like, but it's so real. You have to hear that perspective. You have to talk out loud and put it out there. So those are three things that I definitely. So the sandwich habit, put it in between your things. One thing you need, one thing you want, and reflection.
So interesting. It's really interesting how we're like all on so much on the same page so far with some with this with our responses, because for me, one of the things that is important for me and that I talk a lot with my clients about in therapy is, change is incremental. It's a bit at a time, and it's not necessarily linear. Sometimes it's jagged. So, um, I think starting, like I said, starting somewhere and starting small. One of the things that I found that really immobilizes people is all or none thinking. Like if you got to do the big thing, you got to do it all. So then people get often, and sometimes I do the same, get stuck because you can't do it all. So it doesn't have to be all or none. Start somewhere. Incremental things, small things lead you to bigger changes, bigger modifications, really. And so, starting incrementally and just, just to share something really personal, or it's not that personal, but it's my own personal story. I remember back when I was working on my doctorate, when I was working on my dissertation, it just felt like every moment of my day was taken up with stuff. And a lot of it was trying to write my dissertation so I could get out of grad school. And I remember telling my dissertation advisor, like, I don't even have time to see a sunset. And she was like, but you do. You can see a sunset. You can take 5 minutes and watch the sunset or the sunrise or whatever. And I thought about it and I was like, she was right. And so I started doing that. And that's like been a huge part of my own just sense of wellness now. I mean, this is years and years and years later, but like, and it's not even that I necessarily go and sit on a deck to see the sunset, but it's I pay attention to nature. And that has been an incredible part of me just feeling more attuned to the world, to people around me, to myself, everything. So just starting somewhere.